for Gradius 5. Quite possibly the best shooter I have ever played in my life.
Holy crap!
Is fantastic.
Einhander!
It's amazing. And it's
I sometimes like to speak on those games that you've played, but over time may have faded from your memory. Einhander is definitely one of those games for me. It wasn't until watching Nefarious West's video on his Gradius collection of all things to spark a memory of Einhander. Shoot 'em ups were never really my thing, but Einhander just appealed to me in such a way. It's amazing I forgot about it in the first place. Developed by Squaresoft of all companies, this sci-fi shooter loosely bases itself on the tale of Endymion and Selene, but you probably never make that connection.
In the era of great chaos, when the Earth and the Moon were at war with each other, a daredevil from the moon piloted a bizarre aircraft. It was feared, and because of its shape, called Einhander.
The name Einhander itself refers to the German name for a sword that needs only to be wielded with one hand. This name refers to the ship itself, with its single mechanical arm being able to grab weapons as they become available and use them freely. Our story sets us in the future, where most of civilization has either been destroyed or reshaped to a new way of living. The moon is also now inhabited, and a war wages between the two. You play as the pilot of an experimental spacecraft sent from the moon to infiltrate and hinder the forces of Earth. This task won't be easy, but you'll have an array of weapons to help you along the way, most of them taken from the enemies themselves. Einhander gives you multiple ways to play, having 3 customization settings to fit to your liking. You can have 1 gun pod that will change every time you pick up a new weapon, 2 gun pods, one of which your arm will use while the other replaces your main gun, allowing for dual use of stronger weapons simultaneously, or having a setting of 3 gun pods that you can collect and store, changing them as you like, as long as you have ammo remaining. I found that my playstyle was wielding 2 gun pods at once, as it gave me more ways to deal with different types of enemies. The game performs in a nearly seamless transition between stages in a 2.5D format, where you'll be facing most foes in a side-scrolling run. You will get to see the depth of the cities and machines around you. Sometimes you'll find yourself descending, and sometimes you'll be able to traverse all over the screen to avoid some baddies while taking out others. You're taking the fight to Earth as you battle through giant cities, weapon-filled convoys, and even the weapon labs themselves to give your lunar colony the edge in this war. But this is by no means a cakewalk. Your guns may be powerful, but all it will take is a good shot to the body of your spacecraft to send you crumbling to the floor. You may notice that in your defeat that you have 10 continues with a set of 4 lives each continue, which means one thing: you're gonna get your ass kicked. Whether it be from the multitude of lesser enemies that completely fill the screen, to the larger enemies brandishing the weapons you so sorely need, you're guaranteed to get shot down at least once in your playthrough. But Einhander's addictive gameplay will have you eager for more. Pushing your way through enemy lines and learning the patterns of each mini-boss and regular boss makes the nerve-wracking trek through enemy territory all worth it. But I cannot emphasize enough that this game is just brutal. It can sometimes be a challenge to focus on everything around you, especially when some foes shoot these tiny beams towards you while you're searching for the bigger enemies to see which one has the better gun you want. These 10 continues may seem like a lot, but you'll be using them up faster than your spacecraft can handle. This game takes many forms, from waves of enemies to parts that are just plain claustrophobic. I mean, come on man, look at this. But the difficulty of this game is something I just love. because where it does possess a relentless difficulty, it's a relentless difficulty that's completely fair, for several reasons. There are a lot of times where Einhander is as generous as it is unforgiving. Like for example, despite this game being a one-shot down shoot 'em up, your weapons technically serve two purposes. If your weapon is more in the line of fire than your ship, then the weapon will take the hit for you, damaging itself in the process rather than you. The amount of lives you get also allows you to learn where you're making mistakes. I'd argue that the mini-bosses pose a greater threat than the bosses themselves. These one-on-one fights can be infuriating with just how much they have at their disposal. Take for example the second stage mini-boss. He may not look like much, but he has a gun arm that can fire multiple ways, a heat-seeking rocket pack in the back of his vessel, and a leap that covers nearly the whole screen. A few rounds with this guy and I was about ready to call it quits, but because I had so many lives, I was able to start reading his patterns. Like when he wiggles, he's about to fire his rockets. If he's looking up like this, he's about to jump, meaning I need to hang back to a corner. If one of his moves is giving me more trouble than the others, then I can focus on that part of his body and destroy it, completely disabling his ability to use that move. This is one of Einhander's biggest features. Nearly every part of a mini-boss or a regular boss's arsenal is completely destructible, meaning you can make the fight as difficult or as easy as you want to. So picking up the patterns of this mini-boss and slowly taking out his missile pack helped to learn what to do to beat him. Of course, then all I had left was the crushing realization that this was just a mini-boss. But once a mini-boss is beaten, you don't have to worry about it anymore, because another generous feature of Einhander is its many checkpoints. Nearly every phase of a stage has a checkpoint, so progressing levels is never too exhausting. And even if you're shot down and your next screen doesn't load fast enough, the game will be like, well, you made it this far, and set you to the next phase. From there, it's on to Einhander's most enjoyable and frustrating experience, the bosses. The boss at stage 2 looks like an encounter that you'll never get past. I mean, look at him. A mounted minigun, flamethrower, missile pods, charged laser rings, and a burst firehead. That sounds awful. But remember back to what I said. Every boss is destructible. So before targeting his head, try taking out some of his more threatening weapons, like the godforsaken flamethrower. This is a key difference between Einhander and other shoot 'em ups. Other shooters would have you focus on the main area while avoiding every obstacle the boss throws at you. While that is an option, the game encourages you to work around what the boss has and slowly pick it apart, until taking out the main weak point is a breeze. And ladies and gentlemen, that is something that just resonates with me as someone who loves video games. To face these giant hulking machines and to just work them over until there's barely anything left is what makes a game like this so satisfying. And if this game wasn't generous enough, it further rewards your efforts with even more support. If you pick up anything throughout your playthrough with a save file intact, then you'll be able to start the game and each life with your choice of weapons that you've obtained throughout. That's every time you start a new life, which at some points, notably facing this jerk, is where this is a godsend. So with all that support, hopefully you'll find yourself more likely to pick this game up and memorize all its challenges, which you'll need to do because with all this help you receive, there is one last stage of difficulty you have to face. This game has to be completed in just one run. Saving the weapons you've collected is about all the power a save file holds because despite having one, you cannot save at any stage or point in this game and come back to it. No, you have just 10 continues to run through this game completely, where it's game over and you're all the way back to the start, which might sound impossible if this game weren't so short, only spanning about an hour of gameplay. Einhander's challenge feels almost perfectly balanced with just how much support you can add on to your playthrough, all the while knowing that you've got just 10 continues to complete this game. But even getting a game over and trying again will show you just how much you've learned from your previous playthrough. The second stage mini-boss I had so much trouble with previously is now a breeze, and I found myself getting further and further each time. It also doesn't hurt to have the ability to bring in stronger weapons each time. The gameplay isn't the only thing Einhander brings to the table. Einhander boasts an impressive visual art style too, with each stage completely flowing effortlessly into the next. which makes this game feel like one solid run. The individuality of every boss really shows too, and the sci-fi world Einhander puts itself in is just a pleasure to look at. This is all coupled with one of the best soundtracks in Squaresoft's library. Each transition from stage to boss always comes with a powerful electronica-fueled beat that helps you work through the fight. And I can't stress this enough that each song is fantastic, flowing along the levels themselves as you progress through them. Kenichiro Fukui fails to disappoint with his style of music, but who would expect anything less when you're getting music from the same guy that provided keyboard for the Black Mages? Einhander is a game I would recommend to even the most sparse of shoot-'em-up players. Experiencing the game alone is enough to make it worth it, and seasoned shoot-'em-up players might even find themselves having to recover from a game over as well. It's always refreshing to see Square stretch their wings out every once in a while to something other than Final Fantasy. The only issue with playing this game is, well, obtaining it. Currently, the only way to play this game is to either buy the physical game or emulate it. And while I do love this game, I can't say I encourage spending how much money that costs to actually own this game. I know my pockets were burning when I got mine. And that might be the biggest flaw of all, that this game hasn't been put anywhere else for fans to enjoy, be it a much needed remaster or even a digital download. This game is too good to not make available. And it's not like Einhander is forgotten in the eyes of Square. With a cameo boss battle in Kingdom Hearts 3 featuring the music from the game as well, it seems some haven't forgotten about the wonderful challenge that is Einhander. Just be careful if you do get your hands on it, because this game is dangerous.
I'm gonna get a drink. Don't touch that. This game is freaking hard, dude. Jeremy, no!
No, he's not. He's yelling it.
Hey guys, thanks for checking out the video. Did you play Einhander back in the day? Am I making its difficulty bigger than it seems? Let me know down in the comments, and if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing, and leave a like if you enjoyed what you saw. Stay safe and keep it practical.